this thing on? Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. First thing on the agenda is the agenda. Get a motion to adopt the agenda, unless anyone has anything to, no? Okay, Councillor Nagel. Sorry. I've been doing that all week. It started on the weekend at the volunteer appreciation thing. So thank you. Yeah. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Nagel. Previous minutes. Adoption of our minutes. Councillor Reid. All those in favor of the minutes? Carried. Thank you. Delegations, we have none. We have a bylaw. Land use bylaw amendment. Redesignation for Rivercrest. Bylaw 17. Welcome back.
Thank you. I swear this is the last one tonight. Okay. So I'm back before you again to present for consideration of second and third reading Bylaw 17, 2019, this being a land use amendment for the community of Rivercrest. So Rivercrest is located in the southern portion of town, south of the Bow River, east of Highway 22, just north of River Heights Drive, and right across the road from the Willows neighborhood. So this slide is showing the land use concept from the recently approved Rivercrest neighborhood plan. The central portion of Rivercrest has already been granted its land use, and this current application is simply a housekeeping bylaw in order to amend the land use to match the servicing that was required at the subdivision stage. So the land use application is including the areas boxed in red on the map. So the first one is just the small triangle in the northeast corner of the community, and so it was just left out of previous land use applications. The proposed change is to facilitate the future dedication of environmental reserve, so the land will remain in its natural state due to the sloping on that land. The second piece is this location here. So there always was proposed to be a walkway included here between the homes, and when we worked through the phase 1 subdivision, just due to the lotting, it did make sense to slightly move the walkway just a few lots south from its originally proposed location. So therefore that proposed change is to switch the new walkway area from public service to R1 and then switch the old one back from public service to R1. And then the third area is down here, and this is in relation to the location of services that tied in from River Heights Drive. So again, when we were working through the subdivision application, the public utility lot was originally proposed here. Due to some backsloping agreements that could not be reached, we did have to actually move the public utility lot just slightly to the west. So this is just proposing the change of the public service to move that as well. So this slide is showing the previous land use application areas that have been granted already, and you'll just notice that triangle being left out of the northeast corner. And then this slide is showing the proposed land use amendments. So as discussed, that first area is the triangle, proposed to change from residential urban reserve to public service to facilitate the future environmental reserve dedication. The second area is that pathway connection, and it's just proposed to change from R1 to public service. And then the third one is proposing a switch between R2 and public service to facilitate the creation of the public utility lot that includes the service connections from River Heights Drive into Rivercrest. And during the formal circulation, no concerns were received from referral agencies, adjacent landowners, or other town departments. We also did take this to the Cochrane Planning Commission. They had no concerns. And then during the public hearing for the application, nobody did speak in regard to the proposed bylaw. So with that, the administration is recommending that council gives both second and third readings to Bylaw 17, 2019.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Council, anyone want to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Nagel.
I move the recommended action. And I guess I have a question. So I looked over this at first reading and again before I came here today. Is there anything I'm missing? This is just a really super basic immaterial, like trail movement, basically, right?
As for
what
the
it-
chair, this is strictly a cleanup based on servicing items that had to change during the subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, second readings on the floor. Any other questions, comments, debate? No? Okay. All those in favor of second reading? Carried. Going to carry on with third reading. Councillor Nagel? I got your name down now, so I'll just keep saying it.
I'll move third reading of bylaws 17, 2019.
Okay. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Next up on the agenda. Bridge naming.
Bridge.
I feel like we've been
I have
naming the bridge for months,
For a year.
a year. Okay, it is months. Take a TV timeout here.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh. Are you getting it from me? I emailed it to you. Okay.
Okay, let's take a 2-minute break. We
Okay.
can get our presentation ready. Yeah?
Yeah. Come on now. Okay.
Take it away.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Janung, members of council, senior administration, and guests. We are here tonight for the final step in the bridge naming public engagement process. To remind council, we had through this process virtual and real suggestion boxes. There were 213 unique suggestions. 39 names did not fit categories in our naming policy, so they were eliminated. 124 unique names went forward to the next step. We had online and paper surveys, and in the categories that are outlined in our naming policy, we asked people to choose the top 3 in each of 4 categories. 728 people voted in total. And then we came to council to present the top 11 total vote getters, which then went to the public for voting. The public chose 1 vote in that top 11. We asked people to confirm that they were only voting once. And we had over 2,000 people who voted. So we're really pleased with that result. That was online and in person. And now I am ready to share with council the top vote getter in that list. And so the top vote getter was Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge. I present that to council for confirmation. And we do have some guests here from Jack Tennant's family.
That's your
That's
presentation.
That's it.
That's good. All right. Well, before you clap, yeah. So thank you for that, for outlining the process. It's like I said, feels like months, but you say it's been a year since we embarked on this project to name the bridge, and I think by the feedback, we've had a lot of response from the public. I'm very happy with that, and I think it was clear that council wanted to put the naming of the bridge in the hands of Cochrane residents, and I think we've firmly done that with this process. The year that it's taken, well, we just heard the entire process, but I'm super happy that over 2,000 people had a say, and as the largest piece of infrastructure that Cochrane has ever embarked on trying to build, and that we are building, Mr. Deans, right? I think it's only fitting that the vote be had by the community and that it resonates with the feeling of the community. So with that, I think we should vote, right? Well, someone should put the motion on the floor. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to move the recommended action that a council approve the name for Cochrane's new bridge across the Broad River as chosen by public vote as the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge.
Any comments?
Well, I can just really
Debate?
say this is, there's no debate. What I'm really happy about that is that we did turn this decision over to the public and really empower the public to be part of naming something and to being part of our decision-making process on something that's going to last us, generations. And so this is going to be something that is going to be with us as a community, and it's going to recognize an individual that is so integral to so many of us here in Cochrane. It was a real leader. I think also that having Jack Tennant recognized on a bridge naming was a lot of what Jack was about to me, in that he really did connect different worlds, connect different peoples, and connected people, period. So I think the public chose well, and I'm certainly glad to endorse and support the public naming of this bridge.
Well said. Anyone else care to weigh in? If not, I've got a few words, and I'm going to read them because I spent most of the afternoon pining over what to say and how to say it. So I'm just going to read it. And before I ask members of the Tennant family to come forward, I was fortunate enough to have the privilege of knowing Jack Tennant. Jack was an iconic figure in our community, an individual whose name is worthy of being considered for this form of recognition. A man whose tireless commitment to Cochrane touched just about every corner of our community, including our neighboring communities outside to the west, the Stoney Nakoda Nation. Jack was a connector, a man who had a talent for creating links and overcoming barriers. And that's what you've just spoken to, Councillor McFadden. At a time when transparency was not yet fashionable, he spoke openly and freely about his life, and that engendered a level of trust with everyone he met. He had a unique ability to bridge the span that all too often divides people. The Stoney Nakoda gave him the name Gentle Buffalo. His accomplishments, both personal and professional, always go back to three things: his character, his humility, and humanity. It is also appropriate that we take a moment to mention that the second most popular choice for naming of the bridge was Chief Walking Buffalo, a great statesman and advocate of peace who hailed from the neighboring community of the Stoney Nakoda to the west. So, in honor of Jack's deep connection with the Indigenous community and the expressed interest of Cochrane residents to pay homage to this neighboring community, I think it would be appropriate that we explore a connection maybe that Jack had with the Indigenous neighbors, with the Chief Walking Buffalo name, with his name being Gentle Buffalo, that maybe we could look at ways to incorporate some of the art that we're yet to decide that it could be tied in. And I think there's a great synergy between the whole Buffalo thing there. So it humbles me to be a part of a council that is to provide a long-term recognition of Jack's legacy, and I look forward to officially opening the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge with Jack's family and friends in fall of 2020. So I found myself, how can we honor this moment by just having a vote and moving on? I think we should actually have Brenda come forward if you would like to say a few words. If not, I would officially, you can come forward, please, and I would like to, we have a little something.
Up to there?
No, yeah.
Hey, are you
Can I have you girls on either side of me here?
We will, yeah.
Mayor and council, administration, and guests here this evening. I will keep this really short, but on behalf of the Tennant family, these are Jack's 2 granddaughters, their spouses, and his great-grandchildren behind me. We are so honored to have this named after Jack. He had such a passion for this community, and we so look forward to next year when the bridge is done. And you're absolutely right. He was all about connections, connecting people, connecting the Stoney Nakoda Nation with Cochrane. And we couldn't be more pleased. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you.
It's our honor. So before you walk away, we're going to vote. So we're going to vote, and then if you would come forward, I have an invitation to the official opening of the bridge, which we would like to present to you.
Okay, thank you.
So all those in favor, it's kind of mute at this point, but it's carried unanimously. Please, if you would, I think we should gather for a little photo op.
Okay, yeah.
And I think we should all.
Jack.
All right. It's not every day we get to name a bridge.
Sorry.
All good.
Here's your thing back.
Okay, moving on in the agenda.
Yeah.
Important but less exciting agenda items to come.
Good evening.
Committee appointments.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. In your agenda package this evening is the report for appointing 4 of the public at-large members for the Family and Community Support Services Advisory Board. This was postponed from earlier this year as FCSS Advisory Board wanted some additional time to complete their interviews and put forward their recommendations, and so they're before you tonight. The applications, as always, have been provided to council separately to ensure we are in compliance with the FOIP legislation. And if council would like to, we would recommend you go in camera to review the applications and the selection panel recommendations prior to completing your vote.
Okay. Can I get a motion to go in camera, please? Councillor Flowers.
Camera?
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Back in a jiffy. Motion to come out of camera, please. Councillor Nagel, all in favor? Carried, thank you. That's right, it's all Nagel from here tonight, right? So now we're voting. Right? Thank you. Could fill a couple hours. I feel like we've had a lot of breaks tonight already for a short meeting. Do you need another one?
It's going to take me about 30 seconds
Okay.
just to count these.
I was just thinking about you. Need the Jeopardy music in the background now. Is that a motion? Yeah. It's better when we go have breaks. We don't get this free time to come up with ideas on our own.
So I would like a motion to appoint Gressel Taplau, not sure if I got that last name right, Rick Lancaster, Ryan Cotestone, and Valerie Borsos to the Family and Support Services Advisory Board.
Councillor Federico, would you like to do that since this is your committee?
I recommend that we approve the 4 individuals that have just been named to the FCSS Advisory Board.
Thank you.
Okay.
In addition to that, part of our report this evening is to also have council appoint the Marigold rep for the Marigold Library Board. The Library Board has met, and they have recommended that Susan Roper continue on in that position. Now, Susan has already served 8 years on this board. The standard for this board is 9 years. We have been advised by Marigold that to exceed the 9 years, we would need 2/3 of council to approve that extension. The preference would be to have Susan continue on for a 3-year term. But it is within council's discretion to shorten that term should you wish this evening. But it is our recommendation, based on our input from the library board, that Susan do continue for the full 3 years.
So would you like us to do 2 separate motions?
One single motion would be sufficient, unless we get less than 2/3 on it, then you guys can debate the term, or if you want to debate the term in
Let's
advance.
do the first one on the FCSS, and then I'll look to Councillor Flowers to put the second motion on about the Marigold. So you're on the library board. Okay. Any discussion or debate on the 4? No? Is a vote? Okay. All those in favor? The 4 names? Okay, thank you. I don't mean to put a motion in your mouth, but.
To lengthen the term for 3 years with Susan Roper being our.
Okay. Any debate? I have no concerns about that. Okay. All those in favor of Susan Roper? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Notices of motion. This is our brand new agenda, so if anybody realized that, we're streaming through it so quickly. We're already on notices of motion. Councillor McFadden, you have one?
Mr. Mayor, just following up on the notice of motion I've brought forward at the last meeting. One of the things I'm really proud of our council for doing is finding ways to engage and empower our residents in the decision-making process. And it's come to my attention that sometimes there's barriers to that participation. And so in one of the items that really flagged this for me is that in trying to get more women involved and engaged in the municipal level of government, I have a young lady on my Parks and Recreation Committee that has had some challenges in making some of the meetings due to childcare challenges. And so I certainly value her participation. I think she certainly adds to it, and I think we need to make sure that we can remove any barriers we can to anyone's participation in our decision-making, and that's what's really brought forward this motion that I'm speaking to today. So I'll just read it out, that in recognition of the value brought by a meaningful cross-section of community volunteers willing to donate their time to participate in committees of council, at the April 8th regular council meeting, that's today, I'm going to be bringing forward this motion to direct administration to prepare a policy for the provision of per diems that will remove the barrier faced by those who incur costs associated with dependent care coverage to attend committee meetings. This would be intended to cover costs such as childcare and home care for dependent elders. So I ask council to support this, in that administration would work on creating a process that would support this. So.
Okay. Council, any debate? Councillor Nagel?
I just have a question. Is this only intended for volunteers? Is that the idea? Okay, I will support it then.
You were thinking volunteers or like a, yeah, oh, okay. Councillor Wilson?
For the debate portion of it, or deliberation portion of it, I know this comes from a very caring place, and that I appreciate the thoughtfulness of Councillor McFadden bringing this forward. For me, I feel like this applies only to some volunteers, and a per diem would, for me, should be covered across the board, or not for specific situations. So I would be voting against this motion, although I do very much appreciate our volunteers, and especially those who have dependents at home that need to be cared for. On principle only,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Councillor Flowers?
I will be supporting the motion. I think it speaks to some of the work that we've done on social inclusion and making sure that people can participate, and it's just one more way of getting residents engaged.
Okay. Councillor McFadden?
So I did just want to highlight that the decision tonight would not be to necessarily endorse this happening, but that administration would prepare a policy as outlined that would allow us to look at it in depth. So the ask of tonight from council is that we would prepare a draft policy that council then could debate in more detail.
Okay, and that would include obviously looking at the budget and incorporating it in, yeah. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear or see what this policy would look like. I would hope that it would include what the administrative costs and overhead would be in terms of administering this as well.
Okay, I have one question to administration. That would just be workload. Where would this fall? You know, we have had discussions about strategic priorities. We're reviewing those now. Not saying that anybody can't bring something forward, but where would this fall in the workload? I think it's legislative services that would.
Well, we've indicated that we'll bring it forward in the fall of 2019 for budget deliberations.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? No? All those in favor of Councillor McFadden's motion? Against? Okay, it's carried. Thank you, Councillor McFadden. Mayor's report. It's a light night. It's just a small report tonight. Oh, it's on the back. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. I'm not going to go through all the calendar events that I was at. I'm trying to mix it up a little bit and just give you guys the highlights. I was in attendance of the Municipal Leaders Caucus in Edmonton. I can't remember what week that was. Might have been a week ago. We had a presentation about inclusion, which I found quite interesting, about how municipal governments could work better and build better relationships with our neighbors, specifically Indigenous reservations that are neighbors to municipal governments. So I think that we're on the right track already, is what I kind of took away from that. Some of the questions of that speaker were, do you speak to elders? Do you speak to administration? Do you speak to the chiefs? Do you speak to council? And he said, yes, all of them. So we're doing that already. So I think we're on the right track. The other thing, obviously, we talked about was what's important around the provincial election. Lots of, there was the parties were there, all had representation. They all spoke similar to our mid-sized cities caucus, but not all of the provincial leaders were there. So we talked about municipal funding, the same rhetoric that we talked about at the mid-sized cities. We also had, I took the opportunity to meet with members of the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board to see what they're going through and how they've gotten further along, or, I mean, they've already kind of broken trail for us on how a growth plan could look. So it was interesting to connect with some of them. They actually invited me to attend a meeting, which I think would be interesting if we can make it work. Maybe if anyone's interested, maybe we could pop up there for a day and come back and connect with them. I think that would be interesting to see just exactly how they got over the hump of building a growth plan, where we're a year in now and we don't have one yet. So that was the gist of that. It did let me start to think, and I've spoken with Mr. Devan about this, but we need to start working on our strategy on how we're going to engage the provincial government once government is formed again. He's working on a plan of attack to, and I mean, on our behalf, we could have lunch and meet with our MLA that's elected, but sending letters, do we, I think we need to start getting in the queue as soon as possible with ministers, et cetera, coming out of the election to align ourselves in the right position to whomever is elected to keep Cochrane on the front burner. So that's a focus of mine coming out of that. The other one was the mass transit meeting. It was the first one I had called April 4th, I think it was. I had the mayor of Banff, mayor of Canmore, a representative from District 9, ID 9, which is Lake Louise, and GC, the councillor from district, or the Ward 9 in the city, that is where the CP have their head office in Calgary. So we had representation from all the communities along the line about the mass transit feasibility study and what are the next steps. So coming out of that, we agreed that we do need to have next steps, which was a pretty big next step for me. Trying to get everybody in the same room at the same time was already a feat, but we are going to meet again. We kind of directed our administrations to put together some technical background, so we kind of have some information that we can build on for our next meeting, and then try to decide on stakeholders. Should we form a committee formally? What does that look like? What is the terms of reference? So all of those things will be coming up, and I'll keep you apprised of that. Other than that, the other event, I had a really busy Saturday that accumulated in the CHAPS fundraising dinner, and I will let the councillors that were in attendance speak to it, other than I wanted to say that just in regards to the flooding that has occurred there, unfortunate, obviously, that's an understatement. Anybody has that happen to them, but especially on something that is recognizing and preserving our history as a community. The volunteers have worked tirelessly. I had an opportunity from the president, Mr. Want, to tour the facility with Councillor Flowers on Saturday. We went and looked at, it's not much to see now. They've kind of gotten everything off the floor and it's drying, but there is damage, and there is obviously a cost to that, which is not entirely known. They have met with administration to kind of outline a path forward. I believe they're going to wait and see, I'm going to say let the dust settle, but there's hardly any dust there. It's mostly moisture. So let the water recede, maybe is a better way of saying that, and then once there's a cost that can be attributed to the event, maybe there's an insurance claim or however they want to deal with it, then perhaps there would be an ask of the town, but that is yet to be known. But it was very good at that dinner, that there was a $10,000 check presented by the Totem Foundation to help with the cost of the repairs. So that is a work in progress, but I just wanted, my message to them that evening was that please know you're not alone. The town is here in whatever capacity that is. We don't know yet, but we care. And I see a couple of them in the gallery tonight. So that is my report. Does anyone have a councillor report? Councillor Flowers.
I'd just say that I enjoyed attending the Chaps dinner on Saturday night with Councillor McFadden and the mayor. They put on a great show and a wonderful dinner, and I know that they talked about other checks that are coming in, so I think the public feedback is going to be good from people wanting to help and knowing that they need assistance, so engagement there will be good. I also won a prize that night, so that was extra special. And the volunteer appreciation went off without a hitch on Saturday, and hundreds of volunteers came out to be recognized and watch the movies and eat the donuts, and it was really awesome.
Yeah, I think one thing that we keep saying, and I don't want to make light of it, but the CHAPS organization was wanting to heighten their visibility in the community. And if there's a bright side to a negative situation, that the flood has actually highlighted we actually have a museum, and that there is people that need help, and you can volunteer at it. So that's the bright side. Then, Councillor Federico.
The only thing I wanted to add is last Wednesday, the FCSS Advisory Board was able to hand out $120,000, $70,000 from the United Way and $50,000 from FCSS and grant money to help fund 15 programs in the Cochrane community. And they were all very pleased to be chosen and supported.
Great. Thanks for your work on that committee. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. The volunteer appreciation at the movie house was great. Every year it gets better and better, and they did a really good job this year. The Chaps dinner was also a good time. It was neat to connect with that group of people. And just a quick update on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Our last meeting, we had a meeting around the Horse Creek multiplex, sportsplex, and kind of started to settle on some general direction around kind of core principles about what we'd be looking for on the site. So the work on that project is continuing with the committee's efforts.
Excellent.
That's what I've got.
Anyone else? No? Okay. That's that. Believe that's a wrap on the meeting. I don't think I need to do this, but it just feels like there. Meeting adjourned.